Hello, welcome to the Healing Through Wonder Project. I'm Val Walker and I'm a co-host, and Robyn Houston-Bean with me is also a co-host. And I'm a blogger for Psychology Today, and I often write about awe and wonder as well as social life and loneliness and building community. I've been fascinated in how also experiences of awe and wonder can be shared and how it affects each other when we share our awe and wonder, whether it's in the source experience or through stories that we tell after we've had an experience. I just think in its own right, it's a wonderful way to share with others our stories of awe and wonder. And that's why we're here. It's the project, it's a storytelling project. And I'm also the author of a book called The Art of Comforting, and I wrote that back in about 2010, and it's been out a while. Um, and I'm really glad to see it's still going strong. It's hopefully a helpful book. And also, I wrote a book more recently called 400 Friends and No One to Call, about loneliness and breaking out of loneliness and isolation and how to build connection. And again, one of the ways to build connection is gathering to share stories. So that's what's sort of driving this project for me, as well as my own experiences of awe and wonder that greatly affected my life. So I wanted to just get us all understanding that there are many ways people come to awe and wonder. And we'll go around and say our names first. I would like to hear more from Robyn and Tavyn and Mary.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here again for another month doing this. It's funny that you mentioned your book, 400 Friends and No One to Call, right? Because that's how we came to get together and we worked on that project after connecting shortly before that. Um, I am Robyn from the Summer Rise Foundation. We do peer grief support for anyone who has experienced the death of someone they care about due to substance use related causes. And as I usually say, I've sat with hundreds of grievers, and so many times we get the topic of awe and wonder when people are talking about their grief and their loss and these things that they have encountered. So when Val brought the subject up, I could not say no. I said, what a wonderful thing to talk about and to bring to so many people that might not sit in circles and hear these kind of stories.
Mm.
Mary, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Mary Peckham, and I have an in-home sewing business that I did slip covers for many years. But 12 years ago, I lost my son, Matthew. And ever since then, I have experienced amazing awe and wonder through my work. I have a grief support group called Matthew's Candle, and I'm also now a part of the Sun Will Rise organization. And I work for Plymouth County Outreach doing grief visits. I go to the homes of people who have lost their loved one to an overdose. And but I also sew memorial bears. And I've had a lot of awe and wonder just sewing those memorial bears for people.
Thank
Thanks.
you for that.
And Tavyn, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Tavyn, and I work for SADOD. I actually came into the grief world before I was even old enough to have a job, honestly, because my dad is the owner of SADOD, and he just kind of molded me into being somebody who really paid attention to that kind of thing. And just I've always been really just into helping other people. So when he offered me a job, I was like, oh, perfect, I can actually work for you. So I do a lot of I co-facilitate a group for the Sun Will Rise for people that are in recovery and who have also lost a person, because I'm in recovery myself. So I'm like a good fit for that. And most recently, I lost my mom. And I guess before I lost my mom, I never really paid as close of attention possibly that I do now. Like everything seems to be very vibrant now, everything that's going on around me all the time. When before I was just kind of off in La La Land, checked out a little bit, doing my own thing. And so I don't know if there's just always been as much awe and wonder in my life, or if I'm just paying more close attention now. But either way, it's definitely been something that's been very noticeable in my life lately. So that's my story.
Oh, good. We're going to hear so much more from you all. And before we get into telling our stories, I always like to bring in a nugget of wisdom from a great researcher out there on awe and wonder. And I'm going to quote from two different researchers today. One I quoted from before, Dr. Keltner, who wrote the book called Awe. I always have to do a little, it's so good. It's the new science of everyday wonder and how it can transform your life. Oh, it's good. I mean, I think it makes a really good, especially for people new to reading about the science of awe. It's a really good introductory book too. And another psychologist that's done a lot of study is Michelle Chiota. And Michelle says, when we have an experience of awe, we go beyond what's known as our predictive coding. Think about that, predictive coding. That's a tendency that psychologists study. It's a common term that psychologists study about how we know how things go from one to the next. We sort of anticipate things, we predict things, we think we know how something goes. And what happens with awe, something takes you beyond that predictive coding. It's like, oh, that's not what I thought. You know. And the other thing is that awe takes you beyond your expectations when that happens. And that might make you in some ways more receptive, not only to the experience at hand, but to the people around you. You might see people in a new light around you. Ooh, I never thought of it that way. Robyn, you know, it's like a whole thing about you I never knew. So that's what awe has a way of breaking us out of that predictive coding. And I just love how Michelle Chiota writes that. And then if I go back to the psychologist, Dr. Keltner, who wrote the Awe book, he says there are 8 awe-inspiring or age wonders of life. And I'm just going to name them just so we're aware how wide and vast the different kinds of awe and wonder experiences are. One is, the first most common one, apparently, is the experience of other people's courage or heroism or acts of kindness. Do you know that's one of the most immediate ways people go, wow, you know, it's called moral beauty. That's kind of that whole aspect. It could be kindness, strength, someone just really shows up in some amazing way. The second way of awe is collective effervescence. And that might be an event like a wedding or a funeral or a graduation where everybody just gets that chill all at the same time. It's almost contagious, you know, in groups of people. Hopefully we get a little collective effervescence when we're telling these stories together. And then we have nature is, of course, pretty given. Just ecstatic experiences, just being in nature somewhere. The fourth is music. There's a whole kind of awe just through music alone. Need I mention a concert, say, if you're a Swiftie? I've never been to an Eras Tour concert, but 40,000, 50,000 people all singing at the same time and all the lights going. I mean, just imagine how, you know, all the goosebumps people are getting with those kinds of experiences. So, yeah. And how about the fifth kind of awe and wonder is visual design. So when you're blown away with something, especially through art or architecture or a film or something that just immerses you, like just open, you know, takes your breath away. It's so stunning. Okay. That's visual. And then 6 is spirituality and religion. You know, spiritual experiences are through religious practices that take us to awe and wonder. And finally, 2 more, life and death passages. That's the 7th gateway to awe and wonder. When you witness a birth or witness a death, it can be really powerful that way. And the last one is through an epiphany or through an awakening or a revelation. Just something just struck you and you just opened up. And so how about those 8 apples there? How about them apples? Those are 8 ways we can experience awe and wonder, and it was Dr. Kiltner who put those together, but many other researchers write about these different experiences. So I hope that's a good introduction. We have our own unique path to awe and wonder that we're going to share here in the stories, and I appreciate you letting us have a little introduction. So I'm ready to turn it over to Robyn.
Yeah, no, thanks, Val. Thanks for that list. As you were, saying them, I was thinking to myself, oh, have I experienced awe and wonder with that, with this, with that? Right now I'm like an awe and wonder chaser. Like I want to experience more and more. It's like, it's really exciting to know there's so much of that out there. And like you were saying, Tavyn, like was I not paying attention so much before to it? And now that I'm talking about and thinking of it, it's more available to me. So I thank you for listing those all out.
That helps.
Yeah,
And you can watch this video later and take notes if you want.
we're going to have Mary share her story now. Mary has done some amazing work. When you said the first one, Mary puts herself out there for so many people, and I know she's helped so many grievers along the way. So I'm excited to have Mary share her story.
I have 2 stories, and it has to do with me making my bears. And the one story is a bear for a young man, and mom lived in Pennsylvania, and she sent me his clothes, and it was just like a flannel shirt. And she said, there's a couple of paint splashes on there. She said, but that's okay. He was an artist, and so it gets on the bear, it's fine. So I cut the bear out, and I didn't really pay any attention to any of the splotches. And actually, the only place that ended up with a paint splotch on it was the left ear. And so I boxed up the bear and sent it off to her, and she received it and she let me know. And I said to her, I said, the only paint that ended up was on the left ear. And I said, so I'm going to think of him as our own Vincent van Gogh, because he's the one that cut his left ear off. And she wrote me back and she said, Mary, you have no idea. She said, but Vincent van Gogh was his favorite artist.
Oh.
And at his funeral, they had all of his flowers were sunflowers, and they had, a rendition of Van Gogh's sunflower, because that was his favorite. And I thought, wow, I knew that young man, Johnny, was standing there helping me make that bear alongside my son, because I know my son is who brings these people to me. It just, and the other story is about a young girl, and actually her mom was in Pennsylvania as well, actually New Jersey. They just moved to Pennsylvania. And she was only able to send me just a few small scraps of material, probably about 5, and they weren't very big at all. And because someone had made a quilt, so this was all that was left over. And I said, send it to me. I'll see what I can do. So I looked at it and I'm like, there's no way I could make a whole bear out of this. So I messaged her and I said, okay, I said, I need to go to the store and buy some fabric. I said, so I've had a couple of moms that didn't have any clothing. So what I say to them is, do you have a sign for your child? Dragonfly, butterfly, cardinal, whatever. I said, we can find material like that. Did they have a favorite TV show or a movie, or a favorite Disney princess, or, something like that? And so apparently she talked with her other daughter, and she came back to me and she said, well, we couldn't think of anything. And she said, but she said her favorite show was The Walking Dead.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay.
Hmm.
So I went to Joann's, and they have all those, TV show characters and everything. And so I go over and I find The Walking Dead. There's probably about 4 fabrics. And I pull the first one out, and it says The Walking Dead all over it.
Hmm.
Every single fabric said The Walking Dead. And I thought to myself, I can't make a bear out of this. I just can't. Because here's a bear with small little scraps and it's just basically going to say dead all over it. My heart would not let me do it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go look for something that might help meld all those pieces of material together somehow. And for some reason, I was drawn to the black and white fabric. Immediately found it was a black background with a white butterfly on it. And I'm like, okay, this is it. And honestly, I thought Tara was there with me shopping, because she's like, no, don't do that for my mom. Here, go over here and get this one. And so I, brought it home. I made it, and I, sent it to her. And I wrote her a note, and I said, I could not in good conscience do the bear with that material. I said, in fact, I think your daughter was with me and said, nope, don't do that to my mom. Here, come over here. I said, so for some reason, I picked this white butterfly. She messaged me back and she said, Mary, she said, that is our sign from our daughter, is a white butterfly. And they actually went to a psychic, and the psychic had also mentioned that.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow,
Yeah, you did not see that one coming.
no, I did not.
Hmm. Hmm.
I love that the Vincent Van Gogh, like, what are the chances of his favorite artist being that one particular one that you mentioned?
I know.
Yeah, that's super cool for sure. It's like, what are the odds of that happening? It's just not likely.
Right.
So yeah, that's really cool
Right.
for sure.
And
And
it's
I
interesting.
I feel guided to these things,
I was wondering how your awe and wonder, what do you think turns you to it, draws your attention to it? What do you think it is that's pulling you? Like,
Well, I know I talk to my son a lot, and I know especially in the very beginning, I ask him to, like, okay, so I have another really strange but really cool story, that I knew a woman only through Facebook that lived up in the Rocky Mountains, and she had a son that was struggling, and she just kept trying to get him into rehab, and he just wouldn't go. So, I was talking to her, and I said, you know what? I'm going to pray with my son. I'm going to ask my son to give him some strength to help guide him where he needs to go. And she, a couple of days later, she messaged me and she said, Mary, I have a story I have to tell you. She said, my son finally got into rehab. He called me on the phone from rehab and said, okay, I'm here now, Mom. And she said, I walked out after the phone call. I walked outside, and she was on the porch, and her husband was sitting on the porch. And all of a sudden she gasped and she said, Matthew, is that you? Thank you. Thank you for helping my son. And she had a dragonfly. And that is the major sign, as you can tell behind my head there, from my son, is a dragonfly. And she said, Mary, we don't have dragonflies up here in the high Rocky Mountains. So I knew that was Matthew. She said, and my husband says, who are you talking to? And who is Matthew? And she told him, he's like, okay. But I mean, that right there also just, I think I just, even what I'm more open, like Tavyn said, I'm sure there was lots of awe and wonder 12 years ago that I didn't see.
Yeah.
But, even, not in the beginning, but once that heavy fog lifted, even flowers,
Mhm.
I look at them differently now. They're just so beautiful, and the sky.
Yeah. You're open, all right. You have really opened to it.
Mm,
I think your awe and wonder is contagious too, Mary, because you talk about it a lot. You post things that are amazing with your dragonflies and all these other things. And I think that helps the rest of the people in our grief community a lot when they hear you talking so openly about these moments that take your breath away. It can be healing not just for yourself, but it, has that ripple effect.
thank you. I like to share my hope. I lost it for a long time and then I found it,
Mhm.
and I like to share that because I remember how heavy it was in the beginning, and I want them to be open to it.
And I'm just curious, probably before your loss, you may have had a certain amount of awe and wonder, certainly as a child or as a young person. Do you feel what you're gaining now is something beyond what you had as a child? Or does it feel like it's even more than it used to be? Or is it just different from
All of the
what you
all
used?
of the above, I think,
Yeah.
I honestly think, when we're wounded like that, it can open us up a little better,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
I do contribute it to that great wound that I suffered, you know, and just being older, because as a child, you take that kind of stuff, you know, it, you're like, whatever.
It's a beautiful thing that you said about how our wounds can open us up to being more receptive to awe and wonder and
Mm,
to moments, those moments. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
I think sometimes you have more space when you're grieving. Your brain is getting rid of a lot of other things because
Yeah.
for it. So you have these little openings where maybe you can pay attention to something different than what used to happen. I found that for myself too. After Nick died, I have all these things. I started writing them down that I don't remember happening prior to that. And
Mm,
I can't explain it, and I'm not sure why, but they're healing and helpful to me. And it's a weird phenomenon that I'm noticing with other grievers that this is happening as well. Maybe Tavyn, you can jump in now and share your story.
Absolutely. So yeah, my mom died really suddenly the day after Super Bowl Sunday this year, and it was just a really well. First of all, it was just very shocking. Like she was always very healthy, and she ended up having an aneurysm. So it was just like here 1 second, gone the next. And I was actually on my way to spend the day with her when it happened. So it was also very difficult for me to kind of come to terms with the fact, like if I would have just been there yesterday or if I would have been there earlier or something like that. So I had a real struggle with it and I had a lot of guilt over it. So the day that it all happened, we were at the hospital and there was a bunch of us there. It was my stepdad, my real dad, me, my brother, a bunch of people, my ex. And when we first found out that she wasn't going to make it, I felt like the whole world was like closing in and we couldn't breathe or see or I just felt like I was like frozen in this like really bad place. And so my ex was like, hey, you should walk to my car with me really quick and we should get out of here and get some fresh air for a second. So we walked outside of the hospital. And when we got outside, like the minute I got outside, this little black and orange butterfly just kind of flew over and landed on me. And then it wouldn't leave. And I even at one point it was kind of freaking me out, but it wouldn't leave. So I even like shook my shirt a little bit. I was like, shake it off, and it still wouldn't leave. And so the walk from the door of the hospital all the way to the car was like, I live in San Antonio, so they're big hospitals. It was like probably 10, 12 minutes. And the butterfly didn't leave, to the point that God got his camera out and was taking pictures of the butterfly on my shirt, and it didn't phase it. It just stayed there. So once I got in my car and was about to start, like, I needed the butterfly to get off my car, I had to like physically scoot it off of my shirt, like, get off. And
Wow.
so that was a very, it was just a very interesting thing to me, that I really felt like, because I was pretty sure nothing was going to be okay at that moment. I was like, I don't know how anything's ever possibly going to be okay. And I think it was like her being like, it's really going to be okay. Like, I'm still here with you and everything is going to be okay. And so that was very moving to me. And then about 5 or 6 days later, I have a niece that's 3. And so my sister-in-law took her to the park. And Natalie texted me after they got home from the park, and she's like, you are not going to believe this, but a butterfly, the exact same kind of butterfly, landed on Ella. And Ella was swinging and going down the slides and running around like a 3-year-old does. And the butterfly stayed on her the whole time, just stayed. So I have a picture of the butterfly on my shirt, and then a picture of the butterfly on Ella's hand. And so that was it was just a really meaningful thing. So now I'm accidentally kind of getting a big old tattoo on my back with the butterfly on there. So, just so I can always have her with me. So that was kind of, it was very moving to me when that happened, for sure. And then the other thing is, so we had a celebration of life. Instead of doing like a funeral, my mom wasn't really a big fan of the whole funeral idea. So we did a celebration of life out at her house. And one of the things that we did was like, she loves sunsets. And so at sunset, we decided to do like a lighting of candles. It was kind of we kind of improvised about it, because at first we were going to let off lanterns into the sky, and all the lanterns were broken and they weren't working. So like right at the last minute, me and both of my dads were running around the house trying to find all these candles. And then we were like, where are we going to put the candles? Well, we'll just stick them in the dirt in the ground back in this garden area. We're like, okay. So when we first started doing it, none of the candles would light. We were like trying to light them. They wouldn't light. It was so difficult to get the candles going, but it was before sunset. So it was light outside. And then once we got the candles going, I mean, gusts of wind would come and they wouldn't go out. There's a picture of me once it's all the way completely nighttime. So this was like a solid hour or more later. And I'm just standing around this huge circle of lit up candles, because it was just still lit there. So it was like, that was super amazing, because I was like, the wind is not blowing out the candles right now. So it's for your help, Mom. I really appreciate you being here for me. Because I was like, these candles aren't going to light. What are we going to do? And then they just all started staying lit. So it was really cool. And everyone kept talking about it. They were like, do you see those candles staying lit in the wind? It's kind of weird, right? It was a little weird. Yeah. So, yeah. So it was really cool. And I feel her with me all the time, for sure. I mean, all the time.
So powerful, Tavyn. Like just
Pretty amazing.
the butterfly. I connect a lot with the butterfly and the dragonfly, and just knowing that it's happened twice in such a short period of time, once for you, once for your niece. I mean, and you brought the whole family in on this moment, because they're all like, are you kidding me? Is this happening again?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really amazing. Like it happens all the time. I'll be just like stopped at a red light, for example, and the butterfly will just kind of like ping itself off of my windshield, and then the butterflies just like fly all around my car. I mean, it's like a thing. Sometimes I'm like, it's a little freaky, Mom. Stop freaking me out. Like, and I never was really like a huge believer, if you will. I guess I kind of believe in like the energy type of thing, and the energy never goes away. Once the energy comes, it's never gone completely. But I had a really hard time with like what happens to people in the end, what really happens. And I never spent so much time in my life thinking about that than after I lost my mom. And it's funny, because one thing that my mom used to always tell me is, you don't have to know the exact answer. Sometimes you just have to follow your heart. Like, you don't have to know exactly the answer. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. Is like, I guess I don't really know the answer, but I definitely know that they live on in some sort of really special energy that really makes you feel kind of in a way like part of something. Yeah, like part of something bigger, for sure. Definitely.
I can picture all those lights at a sunset as it's getting darker, with those lights coming out like that.
Can I just
Yeah,
say,
it was beautiful.
I just got a text and I had to look at it just to make sure everything was okay. And somebody just sent me a picture of a sunset, Tavyn.
Wow.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's this.
Oh, wow.
I think that was for
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you.
synchronicity. Yeah, I love
I
it.
really appreciate it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Mm,
if you want me to try and show you a picture of the lights, I can. I think I have one really
good.
easy to install. Let me just look really quick. Oh, I can really, let me see if I can pull these up easily. Okay, let me see if I turn, okay, let's see. I don't know if you'll be able to see. So this is Ella, my niece, and this is the butterfly on her hand at the park.
Oh, wow.
And then, let's see. What else I can do. Okay, so I'll do these ones. So this is at the beginning when we're having a hard time getting the candles lit. Like it's daytime. You can see that it's about to start getting dark and we're like struggling. All the people are around being like, oh no, what are we gonna do? And then here's me later on that night standing around all the lit candles.
Oh, look at that.
Like that's how, I mean, they at the end when I went back over there the next day, there was spots of the ground that were black. That's how they just burnt and kept burning even once they were at the dirt. It was very strange, like it's like spots were black. And then let's see, I think I got. Oh, I don't have one of the butterfly on my shirt, but that was pretty amazing too. But yeah, the butterfly on my shirt, we had to like zoom in and make it really big for my tattoo artist. So the one that's on my shirt is kind of funny looking anyway. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, for a butterfly to stay on a 3-year-old's hand for 5 or 10 minutes while they're playing at the park is just a little strange, I'd say.
And I think, Robyn, where you got that sunrise picture, I feel they could send signs through other people, like the dragonfly in the Rocky Mountains, same thing. I mean, how does that happen? It's awesome.
Mm,
I think, and Mary's been here so for International Overdose Awareness Day, in our town of Braintree, Massachusetts, we do a butterfly release and everybody gets a butterfly to set free at one time. And I just feel so much, I guess that's the collective awe and wonder at that moment where people are interacting with the butterfly and then they're letting them go and some stay for a while, some linger, some fly right away. But it's that collective moment of being together in remembrance. And then this, amazing thing happens. And it always brings me a sense of peace after I leave that event, that I'm part of something else, something bigger. It just brings me like, this feeling of I'm not alone. I'm not alone in all of this. And this whole big world, I'm not alone. And that brings me a lot of peace.
Yep. I know down at the rally that Gary talked about down in Connecticut. And one of the stories from down there was because we all stayed at a hotel and they had buses that would bring us to the Purdue headquarters. And the first bus load gets off the bus, and they're all mostly moms and dads. And they get off the bus, and all of a sudden, they're in the middle of a big city, Stamford, Connecticut. All of a sudden, they get swarmed with dragonflies. Where did those dragonflies come from? And someone had said, well, I know some of these places have pools on the top. And I'm like, yeah, they don't like swimming in pools. But there was no lake around, nothing, and it was, they were swarmed as they got off the bus. It was amazing.
And all bereaved parents.
Yep.
Off that bus. Yeah.
mm. So how many of them said, isn't that amazing? Or did they exclaim anything? Did you hear?
Well, I know that when I came, because I came in the second round, there were quite a few of them who had to come to me and say, Mary, the dragonflies, you missed them, because everybody associates Matthew with the dragonfly.
Mhm.
So, and I'm like, well, he just went ahead of me. That's okay. He brought some friends with him.
Well,
And
and that in
when
and of
I,
itself is so comforting, like that's just, it's so comforting to know that other people are even impacted by Matthew's presence.
right.
Like he must have had a really kind heart and been very, and it's really nice that even though he's not necessarily here with us like that, he still is making such a difference in people's lives and like giving them that kind of warm, fuzzy, like I belong here feeling, which is so important for people, especially when they're grieving,
Yeah.
for sure.
I have a quick one for you if you'd like, because like I told you, I've been writing them down, so I've been revisiting some of these things. My husband's uncle had a stroke, and he was dying in the hospital, and we had to, make that hard decision to, try to carry on or let him go. And they had advised us that it's probably best to let him go. So we had a priest come in to do the last rites, and for this time we had soft music playing for him, just in the background. We were sitting quietly with Tom, and the priest came in, said the last rites, and he turned and he like left the room. And then it was just me and John sitting there and, basically saying like, this is it, this is goodbye, And all of a sudden the volume on the radio turned way up, and it played the song, You Raise Me Up. And
Oh,
John and I always say we wish someone else was in that room with us, because it doesn't sound believable. But it was this timing that was just so amazing, and that the volume got loud, and I knew it was this moment of he left, us. He didn't die exactly at that moment. That would have been too perfect of a story to, then he passed right that second. He did go through the rest of the evening and died the next morning. But it was that moment of his life is over, and here's this like music playing, and it was just a lot of different feelings all at the same time. And I'm glad I got to experience that.
Boy,
For sure.
stunning. Well, I always like to say, when we put these stories out there and we can appreciate them and celebrate them, and it really, I take it with me. I take it with me. I think of these for days afterwards. It really sticks with you, these things. I
thank
will
you.
say, until next time, that's right. We'll have more guests and more stories. And thank you all so much for what you brought tonight.
Bye,
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Thank you all.